My topic of today's talk is the dramaturgy of learning, with the subtitle Setting Traps to Increase Engagement. And I will get back to what I mean with that. And we look at stories. This world is a lot about storytelling today. We have a semantical layer, a meaning layer. The king had a son and a daughter. A spatial layer, configurations, where did they live and who did they know and in what way and what did they have, know and say, for instance. This is a very schematic and sort of diagrammatic way of describing storytelling. We mathematicians love to do stuff like that, to simplify beyond recognition sometimes. And that's what's called abstractions many times also. Abstraction has become an ugly word, the A word, so to say, in school. And this is a shame, because abstraction is what gives us the power. The power of thinking is knowing what not to think about, what to abstract away from. C.S. Lewis once wrote that, the Narnia guy, and he wrote that the reason we can dominate animals may well be that they are too busy remembering things. The reason that people are doing so badly in school is maybe that they are too busy remembering things. And the policy of our education department and Jan Björklund and these people is in a sense the opposite of this old film. You remember the Back to the Future film? Anybody know that film? Now Björklund's policy is the opposite. It's forward to the past. And that just doesn't work. There's no way we can change the students into having the same fear that we had in school. We went to school and you hadn't done your homework. You were humiliated. So that's not a school that we want back. But it was a school that unfortunately was very efficient in transmitting certain types of knowledge, which today is endangered. It's the difficult stories. It's the stories with high redundancy, with high connectivity, the ones where you cannot change a piece without changing everything. Those are the difficult ones. Seymour Papert, one of the early pioneers with computers and kids, Lego Mindstorm type of things, he discriminates between the easy fun and the hard fun. And the easy fun is easy, but the hard fun is hard. So, to continue the story thing, you have a temporal layer, it's just about processes, which is about time relationships. You have an intentional layer, what did they want? And this is where it gets interesting. We people, humans, are very good at intentions. We love that. If we hear a story like the king died, we don't remember that story. But if we hear a story beginning with the king died of jealousy, or something like that, then it immediately anchors. And we can discriminate. We are all the product of an incredibly lucky chain of decisions that made our ancestors survive. And that was based on discovering intentionality. Basically, who is on my menu and whose menu am I on, basically. It's a eat or be eaten thing. The reason we see so many animals when we look at the dusk in the forest line is that it's better to see one animal too much and one too few. Better one too many than too few. So how do we interpret what we see? What do we think is happening? And how do we act in relation to it? This creates what I call here story mapping, which is basically updating the story. If you tell stories about the past, which I did here, then it's history telling. If you tell stories about the future, then it's called future gazing or road mapping, which is a very fashionable game today. I'm involved in that in other contexts, but today I'm going to, let's see here. I'll explain this with this example. I mean, you have a storyline, how a story develops, and then this is a concept that's used in dramaturgy a lot. Dramatic Institute, for instance, has this little book called Here, a little book of traps. It's a script writing tool. But the idea of a trap is to capture the attention of the, what I like to call experiencer, the people experiencing the thing. What is often called the audience or the viewer or the listener. Problem with viewer and listener is that they are sense specific. Viewer is eye and listener is ear. So I like the word experiencer because we're all experiencing things. So initially here, this is the experiencer, the little smiley guy here. He comes into a movie and he looks at it and he doesn't understand anything. Initially the anticipation space is misaligned with the story. Then there's a recovery phase where he basically is starting to see what's going on. There is an alignment where he's capturing up. Now I really see what they're up to, and I think they're going to. So you see how these things are aligning here. He's in tune with what's happening. This is a preparation for the trap, and then suddenly something happens. And what happens then is that the pre-anticipation space, what he was sort of thought was going to happen before the trap, changes drastically. That's what they call a dramatic corner. And that catches the attention. Because once you have this thing developing as you are anticipating, you can basically think about something else. That's how we work as humans. Once we don't get any surprises from our senses, we don't even use them. We run an internal movie of the world. Walk on the street and we meet people and we say, hey, she's going to pass me on the right. And once if I don't detect any reasons for the contrary, I don't even think about it anymore. These things are called mental models, and our heads are full of them. We are information processing machines, quote unquote, of course, but we can think of ourselves like that take in about 4 million bits per second to our senses, and in our conscious mind we can do maximum 30 at our very, very best. So we have to basically compress the information with a factor of 100,000, 10 to the power of 5, 1 and 5 zeros after. That's why we have so many prejudice. Without prejudice we will blow our fuses. Prejudice we have to have, because we're very fast at judging things. That's why we survive, basically. So these anticipations, then storytellers play with this, of course. Good storytellers build anticipation spaces that are broken in surprising ways. It turns out that everybody thought he was going to marry the queen, but then, etc., etc. And that's what keeps the thing interesting. It's like music. Music builds your attention and builds your anticipation. He's playing something, going up to, and then he breaks it. Some people more than others. If you remember Frank Zappa, he's a perfect example of this. He had many traps along the line. As soon as you figure him out, he's on to something else. So this is a way of thinking about dramaturgy, basically. Now here's an old example of mine from California back in the 70s. I did some interesting things there, mainly to do with solar energy and holography, but I won't get into that here, except that I might just show you an example. Let me put this. Now I hope you shouldn't see the lamp there. So I'll try to position it so that none of you sees the lamp. How about you guys on the side? Do you see the bulb?
For me, it doesn't matter. I'm interested.
Well, you okay? Do you see the bulb? You'll see what I'm trying. It's just an ordinary bulb. But if I put this thing here, this is a holographic movie. It's a 3D movie. Now this was a trap because I got your attention, changed your anticipation space. And what's this plastic thing here? I don't think you anticipated this. If anybody did, please contradict me. I'd like to know why in that case. So you see, when I do this, round about there should be okay. Yeah, but when I do this, you see, she doesn't. This is not one hologram, it's 120 degrees times 360 holograms. One every third of a degree. Of a film where she's sitting in front of a camera and throwing this kiss and rotating on the table. And then the hologram is made with a machine, frame by frame. Take about 3 hours to make a hologram like this.
How long?
3 hours. Because you have to feed forward, you have to stabilize. Machine sits on inner tubing. And I was met the guy who invented this and built advanced optics with machinery, with things we bought from the hardware store. It changed completely my attitude to physics. Because one of the prejudices you get here is basically that real innovation has to be done in multi-million-dollar labs. But it's not like that. Not always, at least. So, here are some, as you know, I'm a mathematician, so I think of this as a way of introducing math, actually. This is a way of, and also for a mathematician, you can see this very nicely. This fits with how we think about the world. Fits with curves, tangents, derivatives, things like this. So anticipation space is like the maybe space I showed you before. What kind of things do you think could be possible in the story? What possible unfoldings are there? Dramatic position is where you're at. By the way, I have permission from Björn to touch the screen here. There's no problem with if anybody gets anxious about this. So this is where the agent being the experiencer then, thinks that the story is at or has progressed to. Dramatic history is what's happened up until the present moment, and there's a beautiful little meta-mathematical relation. History can be seen as the integral of a story. Integral is just accumulating, summing things up. So if we sum up all the stories, we have the integrated history. And basically, as you see, well, I will come back to this actually. I'll show you. Anticipation space then, talked about that. Anticipation tangent is the most likely direction where you think things are going at present. She's not going to be able to marry him because she has blah 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 or whatever. And the preference tangent is what you would like to happen. I would like him to marry her because they look so well together and would be a beautiful couple. That kind of thing. So these are concepts then that can be applied to these. Here's the example of the Blade Runner. His name is Oscar Pistorius. He gets through 3, or at least 2 very sharp traps. He loses his legs or his feet. He starts competing and he rises to stardom. And then he kills his wife, which is a real change in anticipation space. It was a mistake. He's misaligned with that storyline. He doesn't sort of, I didn't know it was her type of thing. But of course he is accused of murdering her and there's a trial. And then the final trap here, members of the jury, have you reached a verdict? Yes, Your Honor, we have, right? Now, do you think the media is going to be there?
Maybe.
Maybe. yeah, maybe. I'll take bets, you know. I'll bet you 1 in 100 or 100 to 1. So this is, because we like this. We like to think of the world like this. It engages us, keeps us awake.